Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Craters of the Moon in central Idaho. That's right, I made it. It's great to be out here, early hour, nobody really around. And let's just take a walk at a few selected spots within the National Monument and observe a few things. I think we need to just go down here right off the bat. Great to have you along today. Of course, this is basalt lava. That erupted recently. And what does that mean? Eruptions between 15,000 and 2,000 years ago. That's right, not even 1 million, right? 15,000, so we're at the very tail end of the Ice Age, going into much more recent times. So we definitely have Native Americans in the area when this area was experiencing Hawaiian-like lava. And this is a special spot for many reasons, including the fact that everything looks so fresh. I don't have my hammer with me today. I'm in a national monument. But I think we can still enjoy these samples. Beautiful morning light. That's a spatter cone, not a cinder cone, but a spatter cone, and they're not super common. So I think my general plan is to walk up on that spatter cone with you and look at how spatter cones are different than cinder cones. The only other spatter cone I remember being at was at the Galapagos Islands. No big deal. Back in the early 90s. Cinder cone on the horizon, spatter cone, lava flows, pahoe hoi, caves. There's a lot going on. And I don't know about you, but I like being at places like this when there's not a three-ring circus happening. I understand sometimes it's difficult to avoid those crowded places, but oh, isn't this nice? Spatter cones trails, yeah, okay. So they've got a nice display here that will help us get a visual. These miniature volcanoes formed when blobs of molten lava were lobbed into the air during the last gasp of an eruption sequence that ended about 2,100 years ago. All right. Oh my God, I'm going to have to walk 274 feet one way? Oh yeah, very nice. This beautiful, ropey pahoe hoi, where the rigid skin of the lava folds up as the interior, bright orange, still flows. Still pretty hazy this morning, but not as bad as I was fearing. And I've really only been here once, and that was back in 1987 when my mom and dad visited from Wisconsin. And I mainly remember it was about 30-mile-an-hour winds the entire day, and my mom in particular was braving. She's tough. Okay, enough about my mom. Come on, let's look at this spatter. So can you see right off the bat why this is not a pile of cinders? Us old timers remember cinder tracks, like running tracks, you know, track and field made out of cinder. Well, these are globs. So it's a cone. It's an eruptive vent, part of the Great Rift stretching across the Snake River Plain, but look at the size of these, I don't know, these big head-sized things that are being thrown up into the air and then they land near the vent. A spatter cone. Oh yeah, and some of them are coming to rest and they're still kind of oozy. Look that one up. That's the end of the hike. All right, well, yes, we're at the vent of one of these spatter cones. And so when this was active, it was very active in here. But coming to rest on all sides are these globs of spatter. These are bigger splatters than the thing that I filmed out in central Washington, which was a vent with the Rosa lava flow. And Chris Smart, the videographer, was very impressed with this concept of spatter, but he kept calling it splatter. He threw an L in there. To this day, he still calls it, yeah, remember that time we went out to look at the splatter? I'm like, come on, Chris. Come on. Spatter. He's like, whatever. Yeah. What about craters of the moon? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about it? Oh, we got company now. I'll have to warn them about this exhausting hike. It's one. I'm kind of snarky this morning. It's wonderful that a place like this is so accessible to so many people. It is. Whoops. Morning.
Morning.
Excuse me. The circus has begun. We'll try to find some spots that are out of the line of fire. All right, well, let's walk a little ways on the North Crater Trail. And get a sense of what's over here. Mostly to avoid other folks. So let's see, where are there other places in Western North America that have real fresh basalt like this? And you know, okay, so we got some lava flows like in eastern Washington. Those are the enormous flood basalts. This is different. I think it's a stretch to call this, well, we would not call this flood basalt. We don't have the volume. You know, these individual flows are more similar to Hawaii, where they don't travel more than a few miles, if that. And You know, collectively there's an amazing collection of basalt capping the Snake River Plain, and we're on the northern margin of the Snake River Plain here. But again, we're not really covering much of the Pacific Northwest like we do with the Columbia River basalts. So in that sense, this is unique. Now there's Lava Beds National Monument in Northern California. I was at Newberry Volcano last month in Central Oregon. I know there are plenty of other spots. And in the comments below, you can add your experiences with basalt like this. But is it less than 15,000 years old? Is some of it 2,000 years old or 2,100 years ago? As we have here in Craters of the Moon. This isn't a contest. This isn't a competition. Oh boy, I'm going up. And there's some elevation here, just generally. I can feel it. What is it, like 4,000 feet above sea level, something like that? I didn't look it up. But I can feel it. And I'm filming going this way so that I have the morning light at my back. So you're just gonna have to deal with some heavy breathing. So we still have some spatter here, but we lose those amazing globs. That really was cool. We started the video at one of those guys. Oh my God, there's a ton of people now. Wow, glad I got out when I did. Yeah, let's thread our way through here. This is an interesting mix. So if you're like, you talked about a cinder cone, but I don't think I know what cinders look like. Well, you know, we have a weathered reddish surface here, which reminds me of cinder cones that I used to teach with down in the Big Pine volcanic field in the Owens Valley of California. And then less oxidized material here, but basically, you know, this is what cinders look like. I think most of you know this. So each cinder is full of vesicles. There's a gas-rich story with these magmas coming to the surface. But those spatters were not far away, so I'm hesitant to just say I'm walking on a cinder cone here because I'm not really sure where we are on the spectrum between cinder cone and spatter cone, but occasionally get some bigger blocks within this. Let's just there's a certain sound of walking on a pile of cinders. I don't know how well the audio is picking up my footsteps here, but I got a kick out of some of you commenting on the sound as I was walking on the big obsidian flow a few weeks ago at Newberry. near Paulina Lake. Thank you for the correction on how to pronounce that. Paulina. So some of you were commenting on what it sounds like to walk on volcanic glass versus what it sounds like to walk on a slope made out of loose cinders. Yeah. From here, it looks like it's more spatter over there. That looks a little bit more in place, less scree-like. And I think I can see some individual spatters, but maybe we'll head over there. I'll just keep this rolling. So, it's possible I'm walking on one side of this ravine, which is dark cinder material, part of a cinder cone. And then as we go over to this red stuff, we'll transition from these cinders, very lightweight, transition from these cinders to more of a spatter story. Let's see if I'm right. Well, we got to see what the view looks like here at the little saddle. Yeah, that's smoky. Normally, you can see the Pioneer Mountains quite easily from here. And you can make them out, but not like normal. Oh yeah. Central Idaho. You know, I spent the night along the Big Wood River in Haley, or near Haley, Idaho, and then did a nice drive this morning. I don't know, 45 minutes through Peekaboo and Cary, little farming towns. And I'm happy to report this area is pretty much as I remember it. It's sometimes really nice to have places kind of untouched by time, and boy, all the feelings of what I was, who I was, what I was experiencing almost 40 years ago, pretty much the same. So if you're looking for a really unique part of North America to visit, hard to beat this stretch. The Pioneer Mountains, the Lost River Range, the Lemhi Range, the Beaver Heads. I love this area, and a big part of it is I have very strong, fond memories, but it's been a while. If you're new to this channel and this is the first video you've seen, you're like, wait, this guy's a geology teacher? How come he's not? Oh my God, I think we have a Clark's what? Clark's nut patcher? I don't know. You might like, is this guy ever going to give us some information? Nah, you can Google the information. My deal is coming here and giving you kind of a personal experience, an intimate experience, not polished. If you haven't figured that out with these field videos, that's the hope. That it feels like you're out here with us. And by us, I mean me. So you're looking west. The Pioneer Mountains, much older bedrock, and some of these very young basalts lapping up against the edge. Yeah, this is not a bad little viewpoint. We come over here to the lip. So everything's basalt in the foreground. Nothing is basalt up there high. That's Paleozoic and maybe some Mesozoic rock and some chalice magmas, I might add, but I'm trying to stay focused on this place today. But as we go from the reds and the sheer blacks that we've been walking on, you and I, obviously this is some older craters of the moon basaltic activity, but not by much. And I'm just surmising that based on the topographic difference and also the color difference. We've got more vegetation, we've got less outcrop visible, so can I guess? These are less than 3,000-year-old eruptions, and these are older than 3,000. That's all I'm willing to say here. I'm sure it's all been mapped carefully. But then as we swing to the southwest into the smoke, I mean, it takes 2 hours to drive across the Snake River Plain. So you're like, okay, well, yeah, we're in central Idaho, right? So there must be all sorts of boundaries between flat lava plains and rugged mountains made out of much older rock. That's true along the northern margin here, but if you've never been to this area, I'm not kidding you now. If you drive from the north end to the south end of the Snake River Plain, it's a full 2-hour drive over a featureless plain. Much of it basalt in the millions of years instead of less than 15,000. That's what sets Craters of the Moon apart from the rest of the Snake River Plain. And yeah, there's some topography here due to the freshness of these cones, both spatter cones and cinder cones. I don't know what this stuff is. I've seen it quite often. I'm sure there's a interesting story. Don't have it. Since many of us are getting to be pros with air quality, it feels like every summer now is dealing with this smoke stuff. Is it my imagination, or is it true that it's clearer in the morning hours, and then as the day goes on, generally the haze and the smoke becomes heavier? Is that a thing? If that's true, I'm looking for help now. I'm sure there's many variables, many factors, but I just am curious about the day's heating and how that affects visibility. Because it is clearer this morning than it was yesterday, and I think I've noticed that kind of morning versus afternoon thing as I've been out this past month filming. Otherwise I wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention, I guess. The filming is part of this. Well, there's much to see here at Craters of the Moon. I'm not sure I'm going to visit every spot, primarily because I want to go to one other spot here that's very important to me on the northern edge of the Snake River Plain, and also because I can see more and more people filtering in. That means I'm getting out of here. But we'll keep it rolling. We'll just walk our way back. I don't know how much of this I'll keep. I might edit a bunch of this stuff out, but just a little taste as to what's here. And I would say for sure that if you've never been to a place like this, if you've never been to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, or if you've never been to Newberry Volcano in Oregon, or any place like this, then this is for sure a spot to visit. And if you have been to many basaltic places like this, and this is kind of old hat to you, I don't know, I think it's still worth your time, but it's more of a compare and contrast as opposed to, wow, I've never seen a place like this before. Because this is not the only place in the world that has these features. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'll refrain from the American thing, which is, I don't hear it quite as much anymore, but I used to hear it all the time. This is the biggest, this right here, right at this very spot, is the largest cinder cone in the world. Mm-hmm. Please be cautious when you hear that phrase. Biggest in the world, longest in the world, fastest in the world. There's a small chance it's true, but it's usually not, and I don't know why people view it that way. Like, it's cool. Can't we just enjoy it? Does it have to be the biggest in the world? We know it's big, we know it's long, we know it's fast. Well, we'll keep it rolling. This trail must walk the rim of some sort of central vent. It would help if I read a sign, but I've been busy with you guys. How old is this tree? Well, since it appears to be growing on this surface, and it's safe to say this surface is, yeah, it's not that old. It's always impressive though when you see trees or any sort of large vegetation growing on these surfaces. Sometimes where there's just no lick of soil anywhere. It's like, how do these trees do it? What's their secret? Oh yeah. So your guess is probably as good as mine, but I'll guess anyway that we're looking at a particularly active vent where you can imagine a lot of cinders and occasional spatter. Pile this ejected material around the rim like there was no rim, like the vents down here, and we're piling up a bunch of this stuff, and the stuff's landing X number of feet away from the active vent because it's a little quieter out here. A lot of training to give you that interpretation. Morning. I don't think the views are so great right into the sun, so let me just kind of swing you back. So the scale of a vent like this, and I guess more accurately the scale of the cinders, In other words, the stuff that's kind of piled up along the margins is quite impressive. And I can see some bedrock across the way, so this is more than just piles of cinders. This is, yeah, oh yeah, I can see that pretty well. So I'll add to my pantomiming. It looks like we did have some bedrock all the way through here. Like this was the land surface. This was the Snake River Plain continual basalt lavas that were maybe more than 10,000 years old, let's say. But then there was some renewed activity down here in the vent, blowing up a bunch of this basalt stratigraphy, converting it to cinders and having the cinders pile up around the margin of the vent on top. So adding to my story as we go. I'll give you a quick memory before we quit. I mentioned in the last video that I'm here to attend, starting tonight, attend a big geology reunion at Idaho State University. And I've done some thinking on my way here, and it was Labor Day weekend 1986, kind of my first weekend out just kind of exploring this area. And one of my new classmates was David Zentner, who now is a geologist in Norway. And so Zentner and I took my brand new Toyota Tercel Topaz, no air conditioning, no radio, no floor mats, and my first car, driven it out here, babied it, you know, like this, it's making sure that everything's working properly. And Zentner says, let's, you know, I had just met David. He says, let's go out and explore the Snake River Plain. It's Labor Day weekend, there's nothing else going on. And so we did, and before I knew it, we were on this absolutely terrible, rocky gravel road with my brand new Toyota Tercel. I was so stressed out. You know, we're hitting the oil pan in the bottom, you know, things bottoming out. But the whole reason for my story is it was Labor Day weekend, and I still remember this older couple. I suppose they're my age. Couple in their late 50s, maybe mid 60s or something, and they had just retired. And they were all excited to visit with us, number one, hear our story, like we had just come from different parts of the country, and we were just getting started to study geology at Idaho State. So they were very interested in hearing about our plans and excitement. But they were very excited about their camper on their truck and their plans to experience all these places that they had heard of. And this conversation was at a little parking lot at a place called Crystal Ice Caves, which I haven't been back to since. I don't know if I was that impressed, actually, but I was impressed with this couple for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons was I was so nervous about this upcoming grad school experience. And this is long ago, where I wasn't even sure I had made the right decision to come out to Idaho and to study geology. So I was full of anxiety and stress and other labels that probably were unknown to people at the time. And I just remember thinking, maybe I even said to David, God, it would be so relaxing to switch places with these guys, and I don't have to deal with all this high performance geology stuff. I could just drive around with them, or they can start this grad program and try to prove themselves and learn all this crazy stuff, and I can just take their truck and drive around and not have any problems. But of course it didn't turn out that way, and now here I am 35 years later visiting everybody that I remember from long ago. Is there a point to that story? I guess that I'm remembering Labor Day weekend fondly. Secondly, I'm reminding myself that all of that work and stress was good for me. And I'm able to do what I'm doing now because of that experience in that program. Craters of the Moon. COTM. COTFM. You gotta love it. Oh my, this is very impressive. Lava's here as young as 2,000 years old. And some spatter cones and cinder cones on the horizon. I don't know, have you ever been to the big island of Hawaii? Kilauea, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Man, this is lots of similarities, man. And yet we're here in the middle of the Mormon potato fields. Oh, it's a beautiful sample. Wow. I mean, many of you know the words pahoehoe and a'a. And certainly this ropey stuff here is pahoehoe that forms as lava flowing with a certain amount of fluidity has a cooled skin, a rigid cooled skin, but the interior is still molten and red. And so you develop these folds. That's the pahoehoe, the ropey stuff. like this. But this other stuff is tempting to call but I don't think it is. I think it's just more pahoehoe that's been busted up for some reason. Because I'm seeing enough of these remnant pahoehoe surfaces on these individual blocks. So if you've seen video, or you can get on YouTube and just type in flow. I don't think that's what this is. It is blocky, but I'm not sure that's what we're looking at. So I don't really know how to understand these individual little blocks. Because again, the blocks, look at this. Oh. Each of these blocks is pahoehoe type stuff. Wow. We might have some volcanologists watching and they'll go, come on, man, you really don't know? Obviously, this is an older pahoehoe surface, and then we had some sort of, whatever, shatter ring, or I don't know. Yeah, where's the part where I said I wasn't going to babble? Beautiful cinder cone on the horizon. God, I got to go over that one. That's eye-catching. Damn. Imagine being Israel Russell out here, geologist in 1900, making maps and trying to piece a story together, looking at all these features. Yeah, stuff's like... I just can't stop holding up these pieces. That one's a little heavy. Craters of the frickin' moon. Does not disappoint. What did the Native Americans make of this place? Or they didn't have to imagine something that happened millions of years ago. I mean, if we have eruptions here as recently as 2,000 years ago, they're here. Well, that's quite a thought. Did First Nation people sit here and watch this? Did they stay away? Did they come closer? Was this a holy site? Wouldn't you guess that all humans are naturally attracted to watching a eruption like this, especially if it's not incredibly violent, I would guess that, what a thought, wow. Were there folks here 3,000 years watching these flows cool and then telling their children about it and bringing their children and their children. Wow.